Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to the afternoon session. My name is Telva Devla. I work at Avvo, VP Client Services. So all the customers out there, it's great to see you, and hopefully we can talk later. I have the pleasure of introducing Gyi Tsakalakis, founding the Attorney Sync to help lawyers put their best foot forward online. As a non-practicing attorney, Gyi is familiar with the unique considerations of both effectively and ethically marketing a law practice online. Gyi serves as Vice Chair of the ABA Law Practice Division's Legal Marketing Interest Group. He's also very proud to be a Moz local trusted provider. Please welcome Gyi to the stage.
Thank you very much. Everybody hear me? Got the clicker, here we go. Okay, so we're gonna talk about making your firm more client-centric. I hope we have some time for questions at the end, but I can't promise. We've got a lot of slides to get through. For those that haven't seen me speak before, I tend to go a little bit fast. Obviously make this deck available and you can follow up with me if you have further questions, but I wanna make sure I'm really providing you actionable stuff that you can take back to your firms and hopefully at least learn one new thing, and I think this will be worth it. So really, we're probably going to do more than 45, but some of them there's some crossover, so somehow I got 45 and that's what I'm working with, so that's what we're gonna do. So a little bit about me. My company is one of the Avvo partner companies. It's also a Moz local provider. If you want to, we started this podcast called Client, and we talk about client development stuff. Also an advisor at Lawyernomics. So that's me. Enough about me. So we're going to have a little Lawyernomics nostalgia. Anybody here go to Avvocating 2012? Nope? Okay, I thought maybe we could catch a couple. So this is Rich Barton. You can go look Rich up, very smart guy. This was Barton's rule back then, so this is 6 years ago at what's now Lawyernomics, but was Avvocating then. And it was true then, it was probably true even slightly before then, and it's very, very true now. I think that this is becoming more and more true as the internet continues to evolve. But if it can be known, it will be known. If it can be rated, it will be rated. I remember the conversations that lawyers being very resistant to ratings and getting reviews and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, the solution to all of this is not to ignore it. It's not to try to buy fake reviews and that kind of stuff. It's actually to find ways to make your practice more client-centered, because guess what happens? Clients are happy clients, go online, sing your praises, and all of those traditional kind of word-of-mouth referral aspects to client development still apply today. So let's talk about how we can make some of this stuff happen. So another guy way smarter than me. If you build great experience, customers will tell each other about it. Word of mouth is very powerful. I think lawyers have known that since time out of mind. I think where we struggle sometimes is thinking about how we take those traditional notions of happy clients, word of mouth, things that we can do to improve the client experience, and we don't necessarily know the technical aspects to how to implement some of that. So that's what I really want to focus on, so you can think about some of those things back at your firms. So this is kind of this comes up in my slide decks from periodic, and I used to have a name for it, but I don't really remember what I used to call it. But in any event, I still think this is very true. You start with impressing your clients, right? The focus has got to be on providing a great client experience. It's not, and we'll talk about this, but it's not so much just the getting them focused on outcomes. It's the service side of things. It's thinking more like Nordstrom, right? It's thinking more like Zappos. What can we do at our practice to make the client experience like pretty remarkable, really impress the client, and that's the foundation of getting more attention, motivating people to take action, whether it's on your website, online, offline, and then earning new clients. So let's start with impressing. So if you want to go, and again, this is going to be a 45-minute talk, so there's all sorts of great stuff from really, really smart people that talk about client experience. So you've probably heard of UX in the context of website design, user experience. This is client experience. And there's a lot of overlap with some of the concepts of UX, but if you're looking for the kind of marketing buzzword, hashtag online, that's what you want to be looking at is CX. There's no such thing as PCX, I made that up, but it's very important to think that before someone has a client experience, they're going to have a potential client experience. And so I really want you to start thinking about these experiences from the standpoint of first impression. So it's not just what you're doing with your clients, it's former clients, it's referral sources. Referral experience, made that up too, so you won't be able to find anything about that online. But it's those relationships that we're going to be focusing on and what we can do online and offline and at our firms systematically to improve those experiences. So George Washington laying this, the cornerstone of the capital. That should be the cornerstone of your practice, should be client experience before you get into any of this other marketing stuff. So what is it? What clients want, do, see, think, and feel. Includes direct contact. So that's the one I think that lawyers are like, yeah, I get that one. You know, it's how I answer my phone. It's how I'm talking to people. It's how I'm emailing people. But it's also indirect contact. So it's all that stuff that's happening when you're not there that you're probably not going to hear about most of the time unless someone goes and publishes something online. So it's word of mouth and reputation. And a lot of it's subconscious. So a lot of it's feel. So people make these decisions, you know, just as we know in shopping for things in other contexts. A lot of this is emotional stuff. It's not rational stuff. So lawyers like to think like, oh, well, it's rational for them to choose me because I'm the most experienced lawyer in my area. And it's not necessarily what legal services consumers are thinking when they're making these decisions. So we want to think about that as we start to break some of these things apart. So fix their experience first. If you're spending money on paid search, if you're spending money on TV, if you're spending money on SEO or anything else, you need to put on the brakes if you haven't thought about your client experience and shopped your firm, because you're going to spend money to drive people to a bad experience, and it's only going to become a liability, and I'll show you some examples of that. Can SEO your way out of a bad reputation? Some facetious SEOs might say, well, you can suppress some of the bad listings, but the point being here is that the foundation has to be relationships and reputation, and then search and advertising and all those things are great ways to marshal the evidence of that reputation. But if you don't start with the experience, you're going to be spending money to drive people that are going to leave nasty reviews about what you're doing online. So you're going to hurt the efficiency of your advertising dollars because you're going to be spending to drive publicity for bad news. So client experience is also your professional duty. You might not have known that. We're going to talk some ethics really quickly. So rule 1.3, reasonable diligence and promptness in representing a client. That sounds a little bit like maybe some client experience there. And I would suggest this, that reasonable, that's a floor, right? Like the ethics rules are like the basement. If you're doing that, it's like, okay, I'm passing reasonable muster. Like I'm not getting grieved. But if you really want to make any of this stuff, clients and the stuff we're going to talk about to work, it's got to be remarkable, right? So, and that's the starting point. It's a huge competitive advantage if you can pull it off. But the little tiny things that you can do to make a client or potential client be like, that's different. I haven't heard that before. Those little remarkable things that you do throughout your processes and your systems, that's going to make a huge difference in whether it's them making a referral, becoming a client, making a hiring decision, or recommend in some other context. So pursuing a matter on behalf of a client despite opposition, obstruction, or personal inconvenience. Again, a lot of lawyers will say things like, oh, well, I don't want to answer the phone, or I don't want to deal with potential clients. Well, guess what? Not only, especially for clients, like this is part of your obligation is to provide service to your clients. Unreasonable delay can cause a client needless anxiety and undermine confidence in the lawyer's trust. So again, if you're not communicating, if you're not answering clients' questions, not only is it bad for business, it's obviously an ethical obligation. And I'm going to show you that it's actually in your self-interest to take a really hard look at what you're doing client experience-wise and try to fix some of those things. So this is what happens. You see things like my overall experience in communication with them is the biggest regret in the process, right? So it's not outcome specific. This isn't talking about how much money they thought they were entitled to, or that they thought that they should be acquitted and they were, had to plead guilty. It's about communication, right? And so I want you to start thinking about what's going on at your firm right now. Like, do you have an established communication process? Does everybody at your firm know what the communication process is? What are the expectations set through that communication process from first impression all the way through to signing retainers or handing somebody a settlement check? Never helped me. I just kept getting told someone and called and wanted a whole month just to find out that they're not even going to do anything. Again, this is an advertisement for saying that this lawyer doesn't really care about the client, or at the very least, doesn't have, hasn't taken time to think about client experience. And again, bad press, guys. This is the kind of stuff that really hurts things. So this is actually a real example from Chicago. This gentleman spends tons of money on TV ads, and when you go and type his name into Google, this is what you see, right? So 2 stars at 22 reviews, 2.2, not good. And that's going to hurt his ability to convert those people that saw that ad online that went to go look him up to maybe consider hiring him. They're seeing this kind of stuff. That's wasted ad money. So this is kind of the opposite of this, and I think some of this is going to feel like maybe warm and fuzzies, but this is the stuff that gets into that remarkable category, right? So this is from the testimonial. I recently experienced tragic loss. I was caring and very thoughtful of what I was experiencing, right? So that's the difference, right? And again, not outcome specific, not talking about facts of any particular legal matter, but everybody knows what being treated with caring and thoughtfulness feels like, and that's the stuff that you want to be, singing your praises online. And it starts with having these systems in place to identify how the client is experiencing interacting with your firm. That's how you get this stuff to happen. He put me in touch with another lawyer that could better answer my questions. He just wanted to help me, right? So again, how do we get more people to publish this stuff online? It starts with the systems and processes with communication and expectation setting. And in this particular case, this wasn't even from a client. This was someone that there actually wasn't a right fit for that firm for whatever reason. So he referred it out and still got the positive sentiment from that potential client. And he also has systems in place to nurture that relationship so that in the future, if this person knows someone, they're going to be they trust this person already, they're much more likely to refer. Okay. Returning my calls almost immediately. So number one is you have to be fast online. You have to be able to respond within seconds, whether you're using an answering service. If you're going to do it yourself, fine. But if you think that you can let the phone ring and call people back, forget about it. You got to be calling. It's got to be fast. You don't have days. You have minutes and hours. That's one of the most important processes you can think about is how do people get from hearing about you and finding you to actually contacting or scheduling something with you, right? You don't have to be on demand all the time, but you have to have a system in place that responds to them to stop that search. All right, so for number one, or I don't even know where we're on. Number 30, kill best practices. So what works for another, it's good to learn from other firms, right? But what works for other firms isn't necessarily gonna work for your firm. You have to dive into your own specific experience. I think it's good to get ideas, share the knowledge, but don't just wholesale copy what someone else is telling you is the best practice, because I've seen best practices fail all the time. The questions you want to be asking yourself is how can you set better expectations with clients? My background was a plaintiff's lawyer. I know that plaintiff's lawyers love to gravitate towards huge verdicts and settlements and publishing those online. But think about, there are some clients you're not going to be able to get $1.8 million for, and you've put that number in that client's head, right? If they come to your website and read that, is that the best thing? Is that the best expectation to set from the beginning? Because I can tell you, a lot of the negative reviews out there are, I didn't get $2 million, or I didn't, his or her slogan is get me out of jail free. Well, I didn't get out of jail free, right? And so if you're setting those expectations through your marketing, I would suggest that you start to think about what you're doing in the client experience process to start with setting those expectations. Most clients don't know what a good outcome is until you set their expectations. But everybody knows what it feels like to be treated with respect and dignity, right? And that's that should be the focus. I would suggest that you, instead of trying to set higher expectations on outcomes and service and competence and that kind of stuff, focus on the service that you provide from a respect and dignity standpoint. And in the grander philosophical futurism kind of landscape, this is the kind of work that's going to be much more difficult for AI to replace. So focusing on ways to communicate, to humanize, to pass respect and dignity through that process to people, that's the stuff that's going to keep you surviving in the long run. If all of your time and your billable time is focused on what people called like this, I can't remember what Robert Reich calls it, but the rote production work, like if you're billing for filling out forms and stuff like that, I would find ways to automate that and spend more time to create these interactions and touch points with clients in the context of respect, dignity, and service. Okay, so a big part of all of this is listening. We're going to get into some more. That was kind of like the idea behind what we're trying to do here. So plant some concepts in your head. Now let's get a little bit more tactical. So number one, Google My Business has come up in a bunch of, everybody's talking about Google My Business. So I'm going to try to tie it more to what we can do from how this impacts making your firm more, or being more client-centric, and then how do we get that stuff online. So if you don't, how many people have Google My Business verified, set up? Okay, good. Okay, a lot, good. So this won't be, so I can go fast through this because it's not totally foreign. This is basically the front page of your first impression for most people that hear about you. So how this is gonna happen is, You meet somebody or a friend or a family member or somebody in your referral network, says your name, they go look you up online. If you have Google My Business, that profile is going to come up. It's going to have reviews, contact information, links to your website, and a bunch more other stuff. So this is just an example of a search, shows that thing on the right there, that's being populated by Google My Business. Talking about experience, pictures of you go in there, not logos and random stock imagery. Put a picture of yourself in there, pictures of you and clients, where you can get clients' consent to use imagery of you, whatever in the context of you working with the client. That's the stuff people want to see. Humanize. Oh, they actually have clients, they're experienced doing this. Clients seem happy. Testimonials on the site. But really, really important, because this is where Google wants to drive people, right? So if you believe in not fighting with Google and embracing that someone else is going to have to disrupt them, and it's not going to be your business, then you want to play with them, and that means Google My Business is going to be the entry point, first impression for most people that interact with your practice. They recently added a QA section, so directing happy clients to the QA section in addition to directing them to your Google My Business. So when a happy client comes to you and says, hey, what can I do to help? We'd really appreciate it if you'd be willing to go and say something nice about the practice on Google My Business. Or you can also have people, motivate people to ask questions. So the thing you gotta be careful about this one is sometimes you will see, that's just the interface with the question and answers box. Sometimes you'll see that this becomes a liability. Again, if you're not focused on the service, you're not monitoring this, there's some problems with their notification system, which is why I encourage you to check in on Google My Business periodically. What's the right number? I don't know, not every day, but maybe a couple times a month to see if there are new negative reviews. We'll talk about some things you can do for listening, but ideally you're using some kind of software that actually triggers. I think Get 5 Stars is doing this right now, but they've actually have a interface with question and answer in Google. So Get 5 Stars is an interesting platform to check out for that. But this can potentially be a negative review space. So a lot of lawyers, because it's newer, they don't even know that this exists. And so they're kind of monitoring the reviews. And then someone went and asked a question about their case or their service experience with your firm on the Q&A. So make sure you're checking the Q&A in your Google My Business regularly, because that can have some hidden landmines in there. Okay. So Google Search Console is a tool to interface for keyword data in Google. And the reason that this is important in the terms of the client service stuff is you're going to see what the mindsets of your potential clients are before and up to the point where they have the first interaction with you. So this is really, you want to talk about emotions and feeling and understanding and empathizing with clients. You have to understand what's on their mind. And guess what's on their mind? The stuff they're typing into Google. So if you're in, I encourage you to make sure that you're configured in Search Console. If you have a website administration person, just tell them to search for Google Search Console and set up the verification. All the documentation's online, it's free. But that's where you're gonna get keyword data. And keyword data is your window into your potential client's mind. And interestingly, if you have search on your Google search on your site, you can search your Google Analytics data and see what people are searching for when they arrive on your site, right? So this is the window into their mind. This is the only way that you're going to be able to create experiences that are going to resonate with them, because this is the stuff that they're thinking about, right? Not everybody's searching for a personal injury lawyer in Chicago, divorce lawyer in Chicago. What they're searching for are solving these life legal issues. And keep in mind that every single day, according to Google, 15% of the searches have never been searched before. So there's a lot of opportunity, there's a lot of blue ocean out there if you know how to mine the keywords and start building experiences for clients and potential clients that resonate with them in that way, on the issues that they're thinking about. Okay, this is another kind of cheat for getting the same kind of thing. You can get Google system data from the autocomplete. So if you just start typing, how do I file, or some other kind of question start that might be relevant to what your practice is, Google will show you searches that have been also performed that they think that you're looking for. Those are the kind of things that are on clients' minds. So this is just another way to kind of mine that keyword data. The people also ask section is also a reflection of that. So answering questions on your site or on sites like Avvo or on sites like Quora, and searching for those types of questions, those are when you're going to spend your time, because we know that people are also having those questions on their mind, because Google's telling us that they're entering them into search. So those are the things, those should be helping to form how you're going to start setting these first impression client experiences, because you want them to be based around what's actually on their mind. And then at the bottom of the page, there's also related searches. So if you type any search into Google, scroll to the bottom, there'll be related searches. It's just another opportunity to see what are some other searches that questions that potential clients have on their mind that we want to take into account, and making sure that we're integrating that into our, definitely our marketing, but also in our process throughout. So what we think might be on their mind might not be exactly the same And the best way to do that is to actually just ask them, and we'll talk about some client feedback survey stuff. Okay, Google Alerts, told, it basically scans the web for whatever you want to put in there and notifies you. So I put my name, my company name. So when someone writes something about my name or my company's name, it sends me a notification to go monitor that. Again, this is very important from the context of, are you meeting the expectations of your clients? Because if your clients are going out and saying nasty things about you, you want to make sure that you're trying to understand why that happened and what you can do to fix that so it doesn't happen again, and maybe even turn that bad experience into a good experience. And we've seen situations where people will delete the review or reverse the review if you take the time to actually try to address what their problem was. So alerts helps you monitor that. If you rely a lot of your business on search and you want to monitor this stuff more closely, there's a free version of Mention, but Mentions we found is much more robust for actually identifying these, especially with media type stuff. So if you're the type of person that wants to get local media attention, Mention's very helpful for kind of understanding where people are having these conversations about you. Not super expensive. And then call recording. So we can debate. If you're a criminal defense lawyer, you might be less inclined to be recording calls or using software to record a call. You have to make a decision for your practice, and I certainly encourage you to reflect on that. But call recording will tell you so much about what's going on, especially if you don't answer your own phone. But even if you do, listening to how you answer the phone, how your firm answers the phone, how your virtual receptionist answers the phone, what the back and forth is with potential clients, you'll be stunned to see the stuff that's going on in there. So encourage you to shop your firm regularly, but I also encourage you to try to use some technology to help assist you with that, because if you're failing there, like you're setting the wrong expectation there, if the service is breaking down there, you're digging yourself out of a hole, right? And so again, if you're spending marketing money or advertising dollars to drive people to your site, and then you're answering the phone like law firm, right? You're just turning people off. So it's a really important touch point, especially when it's first impression for unbranded searches and acquisition through that. If someone that's referred to you, they might cut you a little more slack, right? So referrals tend to cut you a little more slack on speed and time. They might leave you a message, but someone that comes across you on the internet or reads a blog post or does a search, like they're not going to you haven't built any trust with them, so they're going to bounce. So you got to make sure that you're doing everything you can to get that great experience right from that first call, and then ask, right? So if you've got a client base that you have regular conversation, hopefully you have clients that you're having regular conversations with. If you don't, friends and family members, ask them to shop your firm. Ask them what kind of things they're going to be looking for, that they're going to expect in working with your firm, or ask them to go do a search for like a divorce and have them click around in search results and click through on people's sites and see what they're doing. Ask them what matters to them. And then again, same thing we talked about with the phone, you really have to institutionalize the client experience. So if it's more than just you at your practice, whether it's a secretary, somebody answers the phone, a receptionist, or you're using vendors or whatever, you better make sure that everybody's on the same page with how you want clients treated and what that consistent experience is, because it's not going to be good enough if just you do it and everybody else is not doing it, right? That's going to break the whole process. So it's really important that you're thinking about this from a culture standpoint, hiring people on your internal resources for doing it, training for it. If you're going to work with vendors, making sure that they understand it, and making sure you're rewarding that. So Mark brought this up earlier, it's a great idea. Incentivizing people to create amazing client experiences at your firm, that's the way to do it. So whether you're doing spot bonuses or a bonus for a certain amount of positive reviews, or getting a certain client feedback score that we'll talk about in a little bit, make sure that you're rewarding your people for achieving that, because it's extremely valuable. You want them to be thinking about that, and obviously have a little skin in the game. Okay, so intake. Again, how you think intake is going is not how it's going. Go shop your firm. Shop your firm from all the different ways that you take contacts. If you've got random website numbers on the internet that aren't consistent, you got tracking numbers, you better be calling those or having somebody call those numbers periodically to make sure that they're not going into a black hole, that they're not going into a call center that's not answering the way that you want them to answer, or that your team isn't giving them that kind of experience. Because if that intake's broken, if that first impression where you're just starting to build trust is broken, you're never going to hear about it, because most of the time this is what happens. They call, they have a bad conversation with your secretary, they hang up. Your secretary has no incentive to tell you what happened. Your call report's going to show like, oh, under a minute call, what happened? Oh, must be a not qualified lead. No, it's because the person hung up because they thought they were treated rudely by your receptionist. So it's really important to pay attention to that. Ask people how they prefer to communicate, right? Is part of your intake process, do you prefer text messages? Do you prefer emails? How do you want to communicate with us? Here are some options that we usually do. But which one works best for you, right? Don't force people into uncomfortable communication, things that they're not going to participate in. That's another big thing. Like I hear it from lawyers all the time. And with our clients who are lawyers, we run into this a lot too. If you're not communicating that's going to be the source of most of your problems, right? You're going to see, we all know that the number one complaint for grievances is that lawyers aren't communicating with their clients. So ask them how they want to communicate. If this is in your mind that if they really want to get a hold of me, they're going to leave a message, get that out of your mind right now. It doesn't happen. Automated services, try to eliminate the automated services as much as you possibly can. It's got to be a human being that answers. It doesn't have to be a human being. There's certain contexts where I think that you can do a recorded call, but you better make sure that a human being answers at least on that first time to be able to get them to stop their search, set an appointment, that kind of stuff. Very important. Okay, chatbots. Look, I love the future. I love technology, but that's another place too that you get sold on one of these chatbots. You better shop your chatbot because I've seen horrible chatbot experiences for people, and the lawyer has no idea. They're like, I pay a fee a month. The chatbot's supposed to be sending me leads. It's like, no, go look at what the chatbot's doing. The internet, at least some of it, is made of people. So again, the way that people find you online, how they're interacting with your chatbots and your software and your landing pages and all that stuff, really, really important to the kind of expectations and experiences you're setting very early on. How do you prefer to pay, right? So that's another one. Law Pays here, great service. If you take away the friction, don't make it hard for people to pay you. Like that's just like 101 stuff. Make it very easy, take away the friction. And I'm sure you can think of a whole bunch of other things that have to do with your particular practice that you should be asking clients during intake. How do you prefer to blank, right? How do you prefer to do whatever it is? How can you make blank easier for you? That should be your mindset in asking some of these questions and building these processes. How can I make contacting us easier for you? Chat, right? So I was very anti-chat, but again, the devil's in the details. Implementing chat systems that don't cover up your entire page or pop up. People like chat, right? It's one of the things that always comes up is like, how many people here screen people they love, like screen a phone call from their wife or their kid or their parents, right? Everybody screens them. So if you're screening people you love, like guess what? There's going to be screening in the professional context, which is why people prefer chat. They don't want to necessarily hop on a phone. And if you're forcing people to go the phone route every single time, you're going to be losing people that could potentially be a good fit for you. Now, again, if your practice is nope, we do phone calls only, and it's working for you, good for you. I wouldn't suggest spending a lot of money on internet advertising because my suggestion is that your conversion rate is going to be pretty low. How can I make finding answers easier for you? This gets into I'm not going to beat the dead horse with making your website super fast and responsive, but if you're making it difficult for clients to find information to contact you or see your website or read more information or understand what's going on with their case, you're going to have problems. So and part of that process is going to be them coming to your website, being able to find information, quickly loading, secure, and responsive. GTmetric's a great tool for checking speed. It'll show you everything that's wrong. So again, you don't have to be a web developer. Just run your domain through GTmetrix. If your site's loading in anything more than 1 second, you should be sending this report to your web team and saying, how are we going to fix it? Got to get to 1 second. Help Scout, great customer service tool. They have a great blog too, so if you're really into this service stuff, they have all sorts of great recommendations. I would definitely follow up with that. They also have support ticketing and knowledge base. So if you're a WordPress person, you can just search for like knowledge base themes. But how about we have a bunch of places on our site that talk about how clients can interact with us? So what is the firm's policy on answering the phone? Set expectations through a knowledge base. They'll come here and search. Guess what? Now you don't have to answer all those questions every single time. You're not going to get all the extra emails to get those questions. You can refer them to the knowledge base. It shows like every business software in the world has some kind of like frequently asked questions knowledge base that has to do with the product or service. Lawyers should have that too. And that heroic themes. This stuff's cheap, right? You got to take the time on a Saturday and actually start building it out. That's what's difficult to do, but really, really valuable. How can I make signing documents easier for you, right? So proximity is a huge thing in local search, in AdWords. Legal services consumers care about proximity, but guess what? They're going to care about proximity a lot less if you don't make them come in for every single signature that you need, right? So you should be finding ways to be able to automate and do online and on devices things like at least retainer agreements, right? I know the notary thing's a problem, and there's some other specific things you might need people to come in the office for, but the more that you make proximity not an issue and not inconvenience the client, guess what? You're going to have higher conversion rates. You're going to get a happier client. I mean, I've seen reviews. Clients go online. They say, this is a very tech-savvy firm. I never had to even go in for a retainer. I signed all my documents online. Highly recommend. Like, that's the kind of stuff you want to be finding ways to try to implement. How can I make depositions easier for you? So again, if you can find ways to make it easier on the client, do it, because that's how you're going to start to, the clients will start being like, okay, this is different, right? This isn't what I was expecting in a good way. Pick them up. You know, there's Lyft for Business. You can, you know, especially if you're an injury lawyer, people can't get around or they don't have a car, you're working with people that have difficult issues with transportation, go pick them up when you need them to come in, right? Wow, what a remarkable experience that is that the lawyer sent that. And that's one that that's actually one that it's generated a review as well. How can I make scheduling easier for you? So Google My Business, Google wants the attention of everybody, so they're rolling out scheduling options. It hasn't rolled out specifically for lawyers. You can put an appointment URL in your Google My Business, but remove that friction, focus on Google My Business, make it easier for people to make appointments with you. Calendly is another pretty decent tool. I mean, there's a bunch of these kind of like calendaring things that you can set up to like set your availabilities and stuff. But hey, stop going back and forth with clients about when are you available? Well, I'm not available Monday. Well, are you available Wednesday? Well, I'm available at 2 o'clock, right? So that's wasted time. That's bad experience for them. It's bad experience for you. So find ways to improve that kind of process. You're going to see clients are going to appreciate it. And again, the more that you're doing that, it's going to actually help you automate some things and provide a great experience for clients. Forms. So how many people here are regularly sending client survey feedback forms? Anybody? A couple. Good. Great. So what we mean by this is sending a client a quick form. It can be as simple as a Net Promoter Score. So, right, how likely are you to refer our firm to friends and family? 1 out of 10. You can go read all the issues with Net Promoter Score. It's not a perfect score, but it's a very simple, quick touch point that you should be taking the temperature, in my opinion, really throughout the representation. You don't want to inundate people with that stuff, but if you're asking that one question once a month, once a quarter, a couple times a year, you're going to start to collect data on that, and you're going to start to see the points, and that there's going to be certain patterns are going to develop that certain clients have the same problems, and a lot of it has to do with the client service process, but you're never going to know if you don't ask. And there's no way we're going to get through all these slides, so I have to go faster. So that's just a quick example of that. Again, you get the deck. Ask Nicely is a tool that will help you do that if you want. So it's a little more expensive, but a lot of reporting features, and you can customize things. I mean, you can use SurveyMonkey service, or you can use Google Docs, which is basically free. Get 5 Stars has this built in. A couple of the other platforms. I think Podium has something like this feature, so they're here. I would check that out. I think Broadly has something like this. There's Grade Us. There's the extra reviews. So if you just search like, reputation management software, you'll see this kind of stuff. But this gets happy clients. Number one, ask them if they actually are a happy client, and then identifies that they are, and then says, okay, let's send you over here for a review. And if they're not a happy client, gives you the opportunity, notifies you, and gives you the opportunity to respond or deal with that issue before they actually go and being sent on to publishing. So really some really good services. They have a bunch of different features in here that are really great, so I would definitely check that out. Help Scout has this happiness score, so your happiness, like what's the right happiness score for you? I don't know, but having a system and tool in place that actually tracks things like response times and resolution times, like treating it more like a ticketing, your client communication is more like a ticketing system, issue solving system, you can start to actually get some data on your client service. And again, those are the types of things that are going to help you identify your problems early, and then address them and make changes to your process to fix it. Okay. So once you start generating some of this happy sentiment, there are all sorts of things you can do online with it. The big one I always say is make sure if you're going to use client testimonials, get their consent. Obviously states vary from on the rules on how you can actually use this. Some states are not so keen on you posting on their site, but certainly sending people to do it. This is small from Google. So Small Thanks from Google basically takes your Google reviews and turns them into these nice posters, hang them around your office, put them in your lobby, post them on your Google My Business page, post them on Facebook. So there's an example of it on Google Post. And that shows up in the panel, so that becomes first impression stuff. So when you're doing things like charity work, or you have a guide that you want people to pay attention to, or something that you want it to be on the front page of when people search for you, put it in Google Posts, and you can track that back and see if actually that generated any clicks or anything. You can look up, if you're not familiar with it, you can tag these with URL parameters, so you can see like, oh, this particular post actually generated this visit, and that person actually turned into a call, so we should be posting more stuff like that because potential clients seem to like it because they're actually engaging with it and calling us. All right, 5 minutes. Testing, so at very least A/B testing, I would check out Unbounce, and there's a couple other testing platforms, but again, this goes into the asking clients and potential clients what they like. So how they respond to landing pages or Facebook posts, all that data there is there for you to look at to get feedback from them about, I liked this, I didn't like this, I blocked this from my feed because I found it annoying. That's the kind of stuff that you have to use to be able to impact that client experience all the way from the beginning of that first impression when they actually search for you. So it's important to test that stuff. And sounds silly, but if you don't actually care about your clients, this is gonna be a lot harder to do, right? So spending some time, I know it's very busy, we have difficult clients, and you can't make all the people happy all the time, but the more that you focus on like what I can put myself in my client's shoes, actually care about that, you're going to develop a much better relationship with many of these clients, and you can nurture that relationship over a longer period of time. Too many lawyers think my relationship with the client ends when I hand them a check or my representation ends, right? And for some clients, that's going to be true, right? That's just natural. But how many of those clients should actually be regularly nurtured? Like, for example, let me skip through some of these so we can do this faster. How fast you're responding on, this is Bisnard Chase, actually, Christy's here. Great. If you guys want a great example, go look at Bisnard Chase on Facebook, their Facebook page. Great examples of things to share on Facebook that are getting very positive response from the audience. And this is a great one. This actually, so Facebook on their pages, on the app, publishes how fast you respond to client inquiries or inquiries through the page. So again, if you're just like usually doesn't respond, 68% response rate, stuff like that, you're already turning people off before they get there, so pay attention to that. You can also receive text messages through Google My Business if you want to set that up. This is a great opportunity to release friction. People like text messaging, whether you want to or not. It doesn't have to be to your cell phone. You can use a separate kind of phone to capture some of that stuff, especially if you use a call tracking number. But don't make it difficult for them to text you if that's what they want, if that's going to be part of the expectations you're setting. MailChimp's amazing. So you can look at Infusionsoft, HubSpot, a lot of the more fancy CRMs, but if budget's an issue, check out MailChimp's triggers and automation stuff. How about an email that, we capture in intake a client's birthday? How about at least an email that fires off every year on their birthday saying happy birthday? You update the creative once a year. You can send it to as many people as you possibly can, and you don't have to touch it. It's on autopilot. You can update the creative every once in a while. Other ones, specific dates, so you can do things like send them an email on Memorial Day or all sorts of different things. But this is where automation works, right? You can't automate everything. It's got to be authentic. It's got to be real. I'm not big on like just firing off a monthly newsletter unless like your audience is really interested in that. But sending someone a happy Memorial Day or happy 4th of July or happy Labor Day, that's multiple touch points throughout the year. So sending those kind of emails, sending emails that are like for local community stuff that you might be active in, really, really powerful. Hey, come join us at the food bank donation that we're doing this weekend. You can automate that kind of stuff, right? You can link it up with your calendar, fire those out. You don't even have to even send those. You can do all sorts of cool stuff with that. And then recurring dates, right? So there might be like, as part of getting to know a client, there might be a field in your client relationship management tool that says like, well, I knew that that's their anniversary date, or that's their kid's birthday. Like, if you're getting an email from your lawyer saying, hey, I know it's, my daughter's Alexandra. It's Alexandra's birthday, just wanted to say hello. That's the stuff that people think is remarkable, right? Again, not perfect for every practice, not perfect for every client, but those are the types of things you can automate and really have a nice high-touch service with clients. Postable, you can actually now, is a complete online experience if you want to do thank you notes. You can even do online thank you notes. Again, you got to pay for this stuff because someone's actually got to write them, but there are a lot of services that are putting out really nice quality thank you notes. You can do the same type of thing you're doing on MailChimp. You can set it up so it's like send them a handwritten card or a printed card if you don't want it to be handwritten on your behalf. Right online. Again, that kind of stuff can work and it can scale because you don't actually have to write a thank you card for every single client in your database. Okay, so we are going to make it barely, but another great opportunity for demonstrating how you're client-centric and how much you actually care about clients, showing them that you care, are things that are like this is a scholarship. So people always talk about scholarships in terms like SEO and links, but it's much more effective if you're going to do a scholarship or if you're going to do some kind of like charity events or something like that, to highlight it in a way that demonstrates you're caring for the client. So a client-themed scholarship at a local level, both on your site and through your social media, there's all sorts of different ways to do that. That's the kind of thing that people are going to come to that you might not even intended as part of that campaign, that has an extremely powerful impact when they're like, this firm is not only donating money on behalf of this family, they are committed to bringing awareness to distracted driving or whatever kind of issue that's contributed to the challenges. And this is the kind of stuff that people will come and say, like, wow, this firm really actually does care about their clients. That's the kind of thing you should be focusing on, more so than just, in my opinion, just some of the generic advertising that we tend to see. So another great place, once you start getting these great reviews, happy clients, building relationships, you get clients that are willing to do it, using clients and testimonials in ad copy. Again, you got to be careful with it. Go to the state bar, make sure, especially if you're in Texas and Florida, make sure everything you're doing is legit. But you can do a retargeting ad or a custom audience ad, you can do an audience targeting ad in local newspapers of you, with testimonials of you and your client hugging, right? So like way more effective, in my experience, than I have 100 years of experience, I fight really hard and there's a car exploding behind me. Like that's what you want your ads to be looking like when people are coming to their local news sites, when they're coming to forum sites that are actually having conversations about this. Thank you so much. I think we do have a couple time for a couple questions, if not, and if you have follow-ups for me, please feel free to connect with me on Twitter. My DMs are open, so you don't have to follow me to actually connect with me there. Email, and check out Clienting. And if you'd ever like to be a guest or have ideas for topics, please don't hesitate to send them. Thank you so much.